Hey, fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. We are very pleased if you're a Patreon patron, and thank you for your support. If you have an Amazon Prime account, you can sign up for a Twitch Prime account and link the two. It will cost you nothing, and Amazon/Twitch will pay us something. So you can support us just by linking those two accounts. The instructions are in the show description below. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe on YouTube and get the show real time. If you aren't an Amazon Prime member and you just can't deal with funding this show, you're watching this a week late on YouTube, we thank you for your interest, and I insist that you follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter. But other than that, that's the price of admission. So thank you for joining us. Let's get on to today's question. Today's question from Sifted from Stealthy. Who are the big winners and losers of E3 2021? The easy answer is that the public lost. I mean, they're the biggest loser because they just did not get to attend the show, and they didn't get the kind of mainstream media coverage that we normally have at E3. So the biggest issue, I think, for the public is that there wasn't an event to attend. So if they chose to attend, they couldn't. And if they're interested in the games industry, having a live event means that you get a concentration of announcements. And this E3 was just spread out all over the place. And because there was no single point to focus on, the mainstream media largely stayed away. So you just didn't hear much about it at all. So I think, again, biggest losers, the public. Biggest winners, my view is Microsoft, because they announced a lot of stuff we didn't actually know was coming. And Nintendo. A lot of people don't like what they heard from Nintendo because they didn't hear that there's a new Zelda game, although they teased it, but they didn't hear the name of the game or when it's coming. But I think the content from Nintendo is pretty impressive. I know a lot of people aren't big fans of Metroid, but I think that's a pretty interesting franchise. I think it's pretty bold of them to go in the 2D direction, and I frankly think that's going to be a big game. Notwithstanding that we have guys like Jeff Keighley out there doing a phenomenal job with streams, and Shane same, and pretty much every other gaming website following the thing. It was just too fragmented, too disjointed, and that pattern really started when Microsoft and EA pulled off the E3 show floor and kind of did competing events at the same proximity. EA then moved a few miles away. Sony decided to skip E3. So it's been deteriorating the last several years, but obviously the virtual E3 was just a mess. And again, the content was great, but it was spread out. I think there's still an E3 presentation this week. Maybe it was last week, but there was one that was days and days and days later from some tiny company, their E3 show, but they didn't even have it during the week. It was impossible to keep track of everything. And again, you have to kind of rely on the gaming websites to do so. But I think the lack of focus on a single event meant that you didn't get that reminder. You didn't get ABC News on the floor doing a feature. I used to do CNBC from the floor at E3, because they were there to interview Kaz Hirai or whoever at the time, or Phil Spencer, or Don Matrick, or whoever was in charge. So I think that's really, really hurt fans. It's hurt the experience, and it's a vicious death spiral, because the less focus there is on a single event in a single location, the more likely it is that these companies will continue to do more of their own thing, and then you just get even more fragmentation. So EA Play, for example, was always held during the week of E3. It's now being held in late July. So not that I think anybody's really worried about what EA is going to show. They did a Battlefield trailer, but they're going to show Battlefield hands-on. No fans get to play it, unless they go to EA Play, and I don't know how you get to go to that. So, I think that the fans lost. I think that the public lost. I think the industry suffered because of lack of just overall broad media exposure. And so I'd say biggest losers, those guys. I think your question really meant who had the best content. And I think I'll probably surprise people with this, but Microsoft and Nintendo kicked butt. I know a lot of people were disappointed that Nintendo didn't have a Zelda game, or didn't have a updated Mario Kart or something, but they had a lot of content. And I think that people discount games like Metroid because they don't sell 50 million units, but that game looks pretty good. So, I think people were disappointed that Nintendo didn't show new hardware, but they didn't because the Switch is selling out. They sold 28 or 29 million units last year. They're guiding at 25 million in the face of a chip shortage this year and comping against, shelter in place. So, those are numbers that you didn't see out of the Wii. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And so if they're selling full price, 25 million plus units, they don't need a new model. It doesn't make sense to launch a new model, cannibalize sales of the Switch where they're making so much money at, $300 on a regular Switch home console. So I wasn't disappointed, didn't expect anything. As far as, winners, do we see, like Microsoft had a gigantic lineup, a pretty fast cadence. I don't think we really saw much that we didn't know about, but they showed some Bethesda titles. They showed that their acquisitions are paying off. They were really more about Game Pass, so that was good. If you want to subscribe, if you don't want to subscribe, then you just got a lot of content to buy, and I think they're hopeful that you'll just cave and pay for Game Pass. Activision didn't have anything that we didn't know about. Ubisoft always has a surprise or two in there. So Mario plus Rabbids 2 is fun. But again, not going to change the company or change anybody's lives. They dated Far Cry, for example. That's great, but who cares? So I didn't hear anything out of any of the publishers that was really frame-breakingly new or surprising. And as I said, Sony skipped the show. So I think Sony is taking the wrong direction. I think they are making a huge strategic error abandoning E3. I think that is just the wrong thing to do. And I am hopeful that they figure it out and they come back next year when I have a party and they can attend my party. Somebody convinced them that, they'll save 20 million bucks by skipping E3. And in this year's E3, maybe that was a prudent decision, but they skipped the one prior as well. And I think it's just a bad move, really dumb strategy, because you can't buy that much press for 20 million bucks. So, having an event and getting all your fans to focus on that single event is really, really powerful. And I think that whoever's advising their management that skipping E3 is a cost-conscious move and it's smart is just wrong. They're just dumb. So my bias is Sony is and will continue to be the biggest loser at E3 by skipping the show. And I think that they really should wake up and recognize that it's an opportunity for them to showcase their games, and they're very good, and their hardware, which is very good, to the world, when the world is paying attention. I hope they're back in 2022. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. Particularly if you are a Patreon patron, thank you for your support. Thank you if you have figured out how to link your Twitch Prime account to your Amazon Prime account. We're getting paid by Amazon. That's great of them to support us. Thank you if you are a YouTube subscriber. And if you are neither a YouTube subscriber or a Patreon patron and you're too lame to figure out how to link your Twitch Prime account to your Amazon Prime account, at least let's have a follow on Twitter at Michael Pachter. Let me know that I shamed you into following me, and I will give you a shout out on Twitter. Thanks again. See you next time.